call the public hearing to order today, July 13th, 2020 at 6:31 p.m. Let the record show Kathy McNamara, Yolanda Lopez-Bearden, Suzanne McAvoy, and Jamie Miller, myself, Mark Aguirre, are all present as board members. Kathy, if you could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I'll be happy to. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item number 3, information discussion, fiscal year 2020-2021 adopted annual expenditure budget. And before I do that, Ms. Goodman, was there any comments from the public at all that came in?
No, sir, there was not.
Okay. Kelly, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the governing board. I'm going to present my screen just really quickly, just with a cover screen, and I will make this very brief for us. Share. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Tonight we're presenting information and requesting approval of our fiscal year 2020-21 adopted school district annual expenditure budget. The governing board must prepare a proposed budget for the next fiscal year prior to July 5th. And subsequent to that, an adopted budget must be approved by no later than July 15th of each year. The governing board at their last meeting held on June 22nd, after review at a public hearing, approved the proposed annual expenditure budget for 2020-2021 as presented. Subsequent to that action, public notice requirements have been formally met to afford the public an opportunity, to review that budget. Tonight we'll meet the final requirement of holding a public hearing, which once again will allow comments from the public. It's important to note that all forms and the budgeted dollar amounts used in the preparation of the proposed budget remain the same in the adopted, with the only reference changing is that the documentation now reflects this information as the official adopted version of the budget for the 2021 fiscal year. That concludes my very brief presentation. I do have the presentation pulled up in case anyone wants to see or has any questions regarding the information that was presented before, and I'll open it up for any questions.
So with no questions from the public, if I could I get a motion to adjourn the public meeting?
I make a motion to adjourn the public meeting.
And if I could I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Kathy?
Aye.
Yolanda?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
Suzanne?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Show that the public meeting adjourned at 6:34 p.m. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and call the regular board meeting to order at 6:34. We already did the Pledge of Allegiance. Item number 3, it is recommended the governing board approve the regular agenda form and consent agenda consistent with board policy BEDB and temporarily suspend governing board policy with which this agenda may be inconsistent. If I could, Yolanda, could you make a motion?
Okay, I make a motion to approve the regular agenda form and consent agenda consistent with board policy BEDB and temporarily suspend governing board policy with which this agenda may be inconsistent.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Kathy?
Aye.
Yolanda?
Aye.
Suzanne?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Show that it approved unanimously. Item number 4, Governing Board Report. Did anyone have anything to report on?
The only thing is I wanted to make the board aware that we do have, I believe, July 22nd, one of our teachers will be speaking on advocating for gifted. And if you want more information, please let me know and I can send you how to register to see that conference via virtual.
And for me, the only thing that I have is more of a recognition to Mr. Moreno and his team through everything that they've done thus far and the heavy lift that they've had with the situation that we're in. And just thank you very much to you and your team, Mr. Moreno.
Thank you.
Item number 5, consent agenda. Did anyone have anything they wanted pulled? Okay, hearing none. Suzanne, if you could you make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
And if I could I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Kathy?
Aye.
Yolanda?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
Suzanne?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Show that it approved unanimously. Item number 1 under general business, consideration to approve GMP 2 for site improvement and building of the Liberty Elementary School rebuild. Mrs. Basinger.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the Governing Board. Previously, the Governing Board has approved the design and construction of the Liberty Rebuild project. Additionally, the Governing Board approved the GMP number 1 contract for demolition and excavation for the project. Pursuant to the progression of the design, approval is hereby requested for the construction manager at risk, guaranteed maximum price number 2. The GMP number 2 contract includes all remaining earthwork, vertical construction of the buildings, and remaining demolition work for the Liberty Elementary Rebuild project, and it will complete that project. This contract is in alignment with the bond funds budgeted. The original amount of bond funds reserved for the construction were $14 million. As you will note in the contract cover page, you will see that there's a savings in bond funds from that $14 million for adjacent ways components that will be completed off and on site and that are funded from the Adjacent Ways Fund. And I would add that we have both DLR and Chase building team present here with us tonight if there are any specific questions that you might have with regards to the detail.
Did anyone have any questions? There was a lot to read there and a lot to consume.
There was.
It's just a general question. It's more of, are they running into any supply chain issues with the COVID, and do they foresee anything delaying what they have laid out as their schedule?
I might hand that question over to Mr. Schmidt or a representative from Chase.
This is Ben Shunk with Chase Building Team. Dave, do you mind if I step in?
Go ahead,
Mr. President and fellow board members, to answer that question, no, we are currently not seeing any material impacts on procurement. We have had a couple of small situations where we've had a couple of sinks that have been delayed on some projects. We had a situation for about a week where some wood doors were getting temporarily delayed. But other than that, on the sink situation, we were able to find an equivalent sink that was in hand, so it didn't impact the schedule. And the wood doors wasn't a critical path item on another one, but currently we're not projecting or seeing any negative impacts on material procurement.
When are we looking at starting to order out the long lead items?
Mr. President, fellow board members, as soon as we receive approval on GMP2 here, we'll kind of initiate the entire team here and start working on submittals. Once we get approval on those, then we'll work on getting those procured.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I would
Hearing
I would just add that the DLR and Chase really worked remarkably well together to support, I think, a quality design and added some both feature and design that really came through, and with the pricing along the way to meet or beat the price in the GMP. So we're really pleased with how well they've worked with us.
Okay. Hearing no other questions, Jamie, if you could you make a motion to approve GMP number 2, please?
Make a motion to approve the GMP 2 for site improvement and building of the Liberty Elementary School rebuild.
And if I could I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Kathy?
Aye.
Yolanda?
Aye.
Suzanne?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Show that it approved unanimously.
Thank you.
Item number 2, consideration to approve fiscal year 2020-2021 adopted annual expenditure budget. Ms. Basinger.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, earlier this evening at a public hearing and earlier last month, we presented a proposed budget, and as of tonight, we have received no further comments from the hearing, the public hearing. And if there were no further questions, we would ask that you approve the FY 2021 adopted school district annual expenditure budget as presented.
Ms. Basinger, the only question that I had, is there, when approving the budget, is there things in there? I know that there's a lot of line items in there, but for items such as like the good of the district, because there was something that I was contemplating, something that I went to last year, and I thought that it's something that the district should get involved in, and it was the Buckeye, City of Buckeye, their Main Street light parade that they have at Christmas. I noticed that just the school, Liberty School, was represented there, and I didn't know how that works as far as if the budgeting part of that, if the board deemed that we would like to get involved in something like that with a float for the whole district.
Those particular activities are typically done with fundraising through fundraising activities, I would say through auxiliary. They're not typically part of our maintenance and operation or the main budgeted items. Typically, I believe those would be funded individually by the schools. But the district could very well run a fundraiser that they could have monies available for that purpose. I can definitely look into that and get back with you on that.
Okay. Yeah, it's just, I didn't know if that's something that needs to be possibly added into the budget, or if that's something that's kind of normal operations, marketing, if you will, for the district itself.
Sure. We don't necessarily we have a pretty slim administrative budget, so we don't have very much money that direction for marketing. I would say that we do budget a lump sum item for auxiliary, and if those revenues were to become available, that would be a mechanism by which we might be able to move forward with that.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did anyone have any other questions on this? Hearing none. Suzanne, if you could you make a motion to approve the budget?
I make it a motion to approve the fiscal year 2020-2021 adoption annual expenditure budget.
And if I could I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Kathy?
Aye.
Yolanda?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
Suzanne?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Show that it approved unanimously. Item number 3, consideration to approve long and short range plan for facilities and instructional resources. Dr. Schuff.
You're muted, Lori.
President Aguirre, members of the board, obviously I can't do two things at one time of sharing my screen and hitting the mute button at the same time. So let's try again. We wanted to share with you some information regarding our long-range planning for growth. Our district, with our Facilities and Growth Committee 2 years back, really spent some more extensive time, certainly for the entire district as a whole, but really concentrated on the next 5 years. We're already 2 years into that 5-year plan. And with that 5-year plan, we recognize the need to build school number 7. So we're underway with that. And we recognize that there is likely a school coming after that, as does the School Facilities Board. But we just wanted to make sure that we really had the information on our facilities to know whether it was questions like, is it better to just build a wing because that will take care of the facilities need without having to bring that added expense to the community for bond funds? Are there some things that we could do with boundaries, much like some of the conversations we had when we were looking at school number 7? We also wanted to pay attention to some other long-term needs with instructional resources and just have the board be aware of some of these issues and priorities and gather your feedback on our overall projected plan for addressing these. Not with a lot of specificity. This is still a 30,000-foot view, and things are going to potentially change quite a bit over the next 5 to 10 years. Especially with the COVID now, we don't exactly know what that economic impact will be, or in terms of the growth that we'll see here in Buckeye and Goodyear. But what we are basing it on is what the applied economics data provided to us, and they've just recently updated one portion up in the Westar community because Newland community has indicated that they are moving forward with a big portion of land in the next 5 to 15 years. So in my screen here, I've shared with you, I'm going to kind of move here. We have School Facility Board conceptual approval. Just a reminder to the board, in April, we received the conceptual approval. We're expecting to receive full approval here in December for school number 7. And you can see that we are expecting a new school, and that is in the area of Montecito in south of Westar. And that would be at the School Facility Board says open funding year 27, and that is always an issue of what it actually means 28, depending on how they provide that funding. So as you recall, we had some preliminary information about proposed boundaries for school number 7. So you can see in this orange area, this is just the northern portion of the district. And right now, this still looks like likely the best boundary structure in that we looked at it several different ways of how those boundaries could flow. And it had a pretty significant difference in staffing that would be required for Liberty School and school number 7. So if you add the staffing for both of those schools together, what is the more economical staffing model? So that was part of it, as well as a lot of the other boundary types of decisions. So this isn't finalized or formalized. We'll need to take this back out to the community, share with them multiple options and some of the rationale, pros and cons for each of those things, but we're still continuing to work with this working model that the committee shared with us and came to consensus on 2 years ago. So this next slide, I'm going to go ahead and make this much larger. Where am I here? Just so that we can see, you might be able to see it a little bit bigger. So there's a lot on this slide, and really just wanted to say what can tell the story on one slide. So we're looking at, over time, we don't know the answer for school number 7, whether it's going to be kindergarten through 2 here in 21-22. If it's only kindergarten through 2nd grade and we don't receive the funding that we're expecting in December, we would need to use our bond dollars, which we were planning on using anyway, and we would need to open kindergarten through 4th grade, and that could cause us some delay, some issues with school facility board. But we really anticipate after 2 years, we really should be in place for that. Then by 23-24, that the school facility funding would occur. We for sure would have kindergarten through 8th grade available. We had conversations about should we roll up 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade 1 year at a time from Liberty over to school number 7. So that could still be worked in. And what we're really looking for in this whole model all the way across is, where do we outgrow any of our school facilities? So in the bottom, I've got some stars here. And
Dr. Schaaf, are you advancing your screen? Because we see just the planning and growth and then the title slide. And then your next slide, or the top of your next slide. So they don't seem to be advancing. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. No, it showed that it was sharing, so I will stop presenting and I'll just try it one more time. Okay. So can you see the table? Yes, okay. All right, so really what we're starting to say is, if we have the full build out of school number 7, we are good to go with our numbers until we hit 23-24. And we have a capacity of 828 students at Westar, but we will be fine with Westar if we build the Westar wing. And we, at this point, with the school facility board square footage that they will provide to us, we'll have additional square footage left over from building school number 7 that we can apply to build at Westar, to build a Westar wing. And the reason for that is because we used space. We didn't rebuild all of the space at Liberty Elementary. We rebuilt some of that at school number 7. That's how we were able to build the K2 starter school, if you will. So it really positions us well to be able to support Westar, and that, as soon as school facility board provides us approval, we actually can begin work for architectural design and construction really as soon as possible. But by this is the year 23-24 that we would need, excuse me, it's clicking, 23-24, by which we would need to have it open. And remember, this is only based on resident students. So Westar actually could outgrow itself sooner than 23-24 because of the open enrollment population, without us having to turn all those open enrollment students away and let them, instead of letting them continue as if they're our continuing students. So then if you continue on with that thinking, so the double stars there on Westar show that that's now with a classroom wing. With a classroom wing, we are not over capacity. So we have a plan to be able to accommodate those Westar students. We have a plan so far to accommodate certainly the Liberty and number 7 and all the other students. Until we hit 25-26, That's where Las Brisas, just with resident students, would be at overcapacity. They will be at overcapacity sooner than that because they have such a high open enrollment population. And you can see that pink zone of school year 26, 27, and 28 are all over capacity. Then their population starts to get a little bit smaller, and then it goes, so, you know, we don't have much of a projection past 2030 to see if that continues a downward trend or if it turns around and goes back up again. We don't know that past 2030. So we do not have any funding or any plan to be able to accommodate that growth at Las Brisas unless we were to go out for a future bond. And the most space that we can accommodate there at Las Brisas is we can do 4 classrooms, 2 up and 2 down with an extension of one of the buildings there already. So you also will see that Estrella in 26, 27 also becomes over capacity. That is one that we are suggesting kind of a wait and see because if school number 8 opens in 28, or if we're actually able to be ahead of time because they give this funding 2 years early, we with bond money, we potentially could actually open that school sooner. So if we were able to open in 27 or 28 with our school number 8, we then have the opportunity to think about how we do the boundaries of the school. And I'm going to show that in a little slide a little bit later, because all of the Estrella students could handle more of those northern children. Maybe Westar reaches their boundaries in the north a little higher, and then you have the Montecito school number 8 taking up the southern port of all of that entire Estrella community. And then finally, we do see that that Westar in 27, 28, without that school, it also is overcrowded, just like Estrella is, if we don't build out to school number 8. So all that's to say is we're pretty well set for our immediate time period with the bond dollars we have. If everything works out with school facility board, we really should be right on track with what our needs are. And it does demonstrate that still within a short period of time, our district would need to go back out for another bond for school number 8 to be able to accommodate all of that. So before I go on with much else, are there any questions so far? Okay. So these slides, I'm not going to necessarily go through them all, but I just gave them for additional information because we have several of those what if scenarios. In this case, this is our best case. SFB approves in December 2020. We're able to essentially build out at least phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. We're not quite sure about, depending on how soon we'd be able to get started. Would it really finish by 21, or would we be taking the following year? And then if they approve us the following December, this would be the timeline for building out school number 7. Las Brisas, we're continuing to monitor that growth if we need to do boundary adjustments. And overall, it really is the difference here to accommodate this growth is this absolutely would require bond, potentially a lease purchase. It's a small 4 classroom addition. But that has a serious impact on our capital dollars for interest payments and repayment. Westar, as I said before, that's their extra classroom wing. And overall, we may be able to, with the dollars from SFB, it's possible that we would be able to fund the Westar wing with the SFB dollars. Or it may require some potential lease purchase to do that. So we're just kind of waiting to see how those dollars come together and what SFB actually funds us at for the finish of school number 7 build. School number 8, that it would require a future bond and SFB to build that. And here in school, this is a map, very tiny, but you can see the concept of it. The far north is Estrella. Then you have West Star at the midpoint. School number 8 is a much lower point. And then on this map with the Estrella community, you see to the right a brown section of land. Section 14 is what Newland Communities calls it, is Section 14. And in this plot of land, they do have yet another school site, and there are several other school sites already designated in their master plan. And then I list out Estrella Mountain. Certainly an option is if restructuring the boundaries doesn't alleviate their overcrowding. We do have an option of building a potential four classroom wing, but they have limited space on the campus. It could require using some of the playing fields for either additional playground space or construction. This slide shows the development plan. I will really go into this. This is still quite a ways out. It's 5 to 15 years, but we worked with the planning with Newland Communities and our consultant as well as our demographer, just to kind of get an idea about how many households, if we were to give a rough estimate of enrollment for that, approximately 3 square miles. It's not, it's a longer stretch of land. How many kids? We're projecting around an enrollment of 842 students. So we're thinking that their plan to have just one school in that area is sufficient, especially given that school number 8 is really just west of that property. So putting all that together with the bond sale timeline, this is the timeline you're familiar with already. And if we have the ability to sell the bonds 1 year earlier, that's to our advantage. That is solely dependent on the assessed valuation in the community, and we'll just see how the economy goes. If we're getting that growth, we still had the double-digit assessment value growth recently. We're just hoping we stay on track with that over time. So that could mean that either in school year 23 or school year 24, maybe even 24, 25, we would need a new bond. And so that's the piece on the facilities. And then I'll stop there for a minute for questions before I talk about instructional resources. Okay. So for instructional resources, the backstory on this is if you all know the story of the capital funding really simply going away in school districts. It's in 2008, and just recently they restored a portion of those funds, and we're getting close to where we have the full restoration from our 2008 levels of funding. So that's good news. The district can then start to have a master plan for how we cycle out those replacement cycles for all things. We've had other conversations with you about things like carpeting and flooring and the kinds of things that need to be furniture and equipment that has to have its own cycle. We also have a cycle for instructional resources. Typically, that's about 8 years for textbooks, and lean times, that has really gone much, much longer. And we do have significant needs because they have not been replaced over time. We have, the most recent addition was the English Language Arts adoption. So this shows that social studies was adopted in 2006. In 2008, there was a science adoption. Those were kits, mostly some consumable kinds of things. And those are really, for the most part, unusable now here in the district, or non-existent because they've just really passed their life expectancy. In 2015, the board adopted math resources. Those resources are entirely what is called open source resources. That means that we can download teacher materials, and we can download things that students can like instead of having a textbook in mathematics, the teacher can download workbook pages, they can practice opportunities, and the teacher can download resources that support them in lesson planning, but it's actually not a purchase. And then in 2017, we had a major adoption for our reading materials, and in English language arts that there's both reading and writing. So we only have reading materials in the district. So if you look across that, we have some very dated social studies textbooks that are well past, that 8 or 10 year mark. And beyond that, really all we have are reading instructional resources. So that puts a heavy load on our teachers for their planning, and it also presents some considerable obstacles, if you will, to ensuring that we're teaching the intended curriculum, the district curriculum, and having a good aligned instructional resources. When teachers just have to go out and find whatever they can find that supports them in teaching their sometimes that is not of the quality or the quality of alignment to our standards and our curriculum. So the good news is we do have some dedicated budget that is now going to this, where that budget has been pretty much at around the $50,000 mark, which is simply just to replace the textbooks that may have lost or stolen or damaged, and or the growth we've had in students we've had to add on to that inventory for textbooks. Now we have about $325,000 per year, but just to recognize that one adoption for reading cost the district around $400,000 in 2017. So now we're, 3 years, will be 4 years later, those prices continue to go up. So one of the things we're starting to look at, especially in this day and age, is looking at the opportunity for digital resources. And that is where you are spending a set amount each year for each of those subjects that you would, content areas that you would purchase resources for. And then that becomes a subscription price. So the upside of that is that you are always having up-to-date resources. The downside of that is kind of like buying a car. And if you buy a new car and you pay it off in 5 years, you always get to enjoy maybe a few years when you don't have to pay anything on that car. So the same can be said about how we can extend the life of those resources. But in a year like this year, it's far advantage to have digital resources because no matter where. So we just wanted to give you an overall picture of things that we are considering for that long-range plan for both instructional resources and our facilities to teach the children, and because we know you've seen prioritizing for the future. So I'll stop there and see if there are any questions or comments.
So I have a couple of comments. One is I appreciate just having this look ahead. It's something we didn't have prior to really you getting here. So thank you for that. And I think some of the questions I received when the board packet was up is, well, how are we even talking about this because of the situation we're in? And so I really appreciate also your explanation that this is the scenarios that we have right now, and we all know that could change based on the next 18 months. I don't know, and even 18 months we'll be back to a norm. It might be a new norm. So I guess the subscription on, it's kind of like anything I deal with in IT, is there's licensing and there's seats. Is that similar? And the second thing is because I don't the struggle we have right now with students not having one-to-one access, what would that then do to that? Would it just be the teacher printing out materials, or would we really then need to work that all of our grades should be 1-to-1?
Yes. So for this year, we have figured out how to be 1-to-1 for this year. To be completely straightforward, how will we be able to sustain that? Because what we're using to be 1-to-1 are with some devices that may, in actuality need to be retired, by the end of this year, and some devices that will not be eligible, usable for the online testing with AZ Merit, should that still happen here in the spring. So we recognize that, and we are using some bond dollars that was designated, particularly for 1-to-1 devices. We were minimally trying to get to 5th through 8th grade with our bond dollars, and then with the CARES Act dollars, we're able to extend that, and then use take a longer life expectancy with others. So that is absolutely a consideration, that if we don't have the 1-to-1 devices, then asking the students, instead of opening up your textbook to read this story, you're looking at it on the device and reading the story from the device. We're not able to do that unless we are 1-to-1, or we have some additional ones. There's a different activity plan. So we can't go that direction unless we have that capacity.
Thank you.
So it's up to the board if you want to make a motion to approve the priorities, or if you feel like it's not necessary for that. But mostly we just wanted to give you the information, give you an opportunity to say, I'm like that direction, I don't like that direction, I'm concerned that it hasn't been thought through. Just what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's spot on. I think it's kind of shows a glaring point of what happens when you stop investing into something, and you're at the point where we're at now. And when I say stop investing, as far as public school funding, kind of a glaring reality check right there of what happens. So I definitely like to see what it would take to be able to start setting money aside, and maybe that's something that we can do later in some board meetings, with the anticipation that school funding's not going to come back to the levels that we all think that it should be at, just for this particular reason. So did anyone else have anything? I'm sorry, Dr. Schuff, I didn't realize that you were getting ready to say something. Go ahead, please.
Well, I would say that, all of these options, all of this information really point to the need for capital dollars. There are really two ways to get at additional capital dollars to meet the need. With the bond, certainly for the facilities and the construction, that bond can accomplish that. We've also counted on bond dollars to provide other capital needs, deferred maintenance, those kinds of things. So while we wouldn't be purchasing instructional resources with bond dollars, we can address some of the other kinds of capital needs within a bond campaign that free up some additional capital dollars that the district does receive to take care of the instructional resource needs. So that's an option. And then some districts, not as many, also capital dollars, typically that are non-construction related. So, that we're still a ways out for the bigger bond things. That's, about 4 years out, but really you can see that we often have to start planning ahead for that opportunity. And the instructional resources, I think the educational services team will be starting to come forward with what can and should we do regarding these instructional resources. So you may see some committees being formed and some information being brought back to the board for approval for resources in the future.
And I would say that even though that might be 4 years out, how this board handles the next few years will be greatly impactful, hopefully in a positive way, to the adoption from the public. And to Mr. Aguirre's point earlier about being in the town of Buckeye Glow on Monroe, sponsored by APS, getting out there and telling our story is important. And I think that's when we have volunteers like Glenn Koch telling the story of West Star, and Suzanne from, is it Suzanne? Susan, I'm always confused. I apologize if I butchered her name, but our wonderful volunteer coordinator at Estrella, and I'm sure the other schools have that. And we don't have the marketing budget, but I think it's all of our jobs to make sure we're telling the story and that we don't get the money from the state. It is about local control. And I think we have to do a better job as a board educating the general public. So I think it's important to have these conversations. I don't know that we need a vote either, but to echo Mr. Aguirre, you're spot on where we're at.
So, sorry. So does everyone feel comfortable? Do we want to vote on this, or do we just want to go ahead and just kind of give a nod of the head that yes, this is the direction that we want to go? That way, Dr. Schuff and the administration understand what we're looking for.
Nodding my head, yes. I agree with the two of you, and this is a good direction to go.
Dr. Schuff, do you have a preference if we?
I really don't.
Okay.
The agenda is action or action/discussion, so it's really at the board's discretion.
Yeah, I'm fine either way.
What I'd like to do, if it pleases the board, is I'd rather not vote on this. I'd like just a simple discussion, and that way the administration understands that the direction that they're going, that this is what we want to see. So, but if no one else has any questions, if we could, we'll just moving right along to item number 4, discussion and consideration to approve the Arizona School Facilities Board fiscal year for year 2020-2021 capital plan. Mrs. Basinger.
Good evening, Mr. President, governing members of the governing board. I just put up my slide presentation, just checking to see if everyone can see that. I might need a yes because I can't see your faces once I open this.
Not yet. Just make sure you hit the click button share.
Okay, perfect. So can you see the slide?
Not yet.
You go down. We'll be there in a second, Kelly.
Thank you.
Do we have a cape for John yet as he runs down the hall?
You might. Sorry for laughing.
Yeah, the cape's called Rob.
Open.
It was supposed to be funny.
I actually have Rob to the rescue. Thank you. I forgot to click a button. That's so terrible. Thank you. Can everyone see now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So Let me just see. All right. All right, I'm almost there. I shouldn't be that difficult. Can you see the progression of the slide now? So it should say capital plan revised?
Yes.
Perfect. So annually, the School Facilities Board requires school districts to submit a capital plan to help determine statewide facility needs for the next 4 years or land needs within the next 10 years. And that actually, that capital plan requires governing board approval. The approval for new school construction was unchanged from the original FY20 plan. As you may recall, we submitted an updated plan mid-year in March to the Arizona School Facilities Board in hopes that we might get approval for new construction sooner. And that approval wound up being unchanged from the original plan, mostly, in my opinion, due to the unknowns of the impacts due to COVID. Since the most recent capital plan submitted, Applied Economics has provided additional information related to student growth, and I'll show that in a couple slides later. But as such, we are revising the capital plan to submit for FY21. Let me click on that. So this is just the summary highlights of the capital plan, outlining kind of our demographic information. I won't read through those, but just primarily that's kind of a broad descriptor of our district. Summary highlights of the capital plan. Again, much of the information is unchanged from the previous capital plan submitted. Over 10,900 new households are expected to be created over the next 10 years. And with that, enrollment during the same time is expected to increase by more than 1,600 students. This slide is representative of the growth in residential development and housing closing, stutter there. But as you can see, the housing is expected to increase over the next 8 to 10 years. And current market indications are there that the housing units could close at a rate of over 1,000 units per year. So we still have that consideration for our capital plan, even amidst all of the situation that we're going through right now. We still, everything is still holding in a kind of that pattern. This next slide is representative of our growth and enrollment. And as you can see, based on those original projections, forecasting out to 2030, we're anticipating large increases in percentages of growth, especially for the next 4 years. And it kind of starts to taper off as you hit 25. However, there were some changes from 25 to 30 based on the analysis done by Applied Economics. And I'll show you that in just a second as well. This is just updates to the demographic projections from the March 20 submission. And as you can see, and as I mentioned, everything is fairly unchanged until you hit the year 24-25, and you'll see that gold bar that's running across kind of the top. That's the updated information from Applied Economics. And that's basically due to the additional growth south of Westar, as Dr. Schuff indicated earlier in her presentation. This is a very similar comparison to March of 2020 for the ADM projections, relatively the same until we get into that 24-25 year, and then you'll start to see some increases due to that additional enrollment. Summary highlights again of the capital plan are we are requesting 2 new school construction projects to be funded by SFB, one with a projected opening of August 2022, one with a projected opening of August 26. And SFB will actually review that information in December of 2020 and will receive the results of their review sometime shortly thereafter. And if anyone has questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I would just add before, just you see that the difference of the date of the opening with what we are proposing to SFB is different than the slide I shared with you, because the slide I shared with you was more of a worst case scenario. And this is what we are requesting based on what we think is really more appropriate should the data hold true with no change regarding COVID economy.
And thank you, Dr. Sheff, for bringing that up, because we will continue to work with the SFB to promote, those forecasts in hopes that we can stay on their radar and receive that SFB funding.
So the date I saw on there was July, correct? So this is recent data they've collected even amongst what's been going on. Is that my understanding correctly?
Yes. They actually did a study. They worked with Mr. Ed Sloat to review that new development over for Newland communities south of West Star in that area where Dr. Sheff was presenting that additional school site.
So I would add that applied economics, it's really too soon. They've got some preliminary information here in April, May, and June. It's not as negative as what they thought it could be. Same, the JLBC at the state is finding the same thing. However, when applied economics did the trajectories, what they did was they added a new development area that wasn't, that development information hadn't been shared with them. So the uptick in numbers really has to do with that section 14 that I showed you in my prior slides, a whole new development that's planned for the next 5 to 15 years. So they made it clear that their forecast does not include the most recent events related to COVID. That's going to have to come after our new 40th day numbers in the fall.
And on those 40th day numbers, then when they review that, our online platform would still be counted towards our total enrollment, even though we don't get the total dollars. And they would they calculate that into their numbers basically, even though we don't get the full dollars, if I'm remembering correctly.
Kelly, do you want me to take that or you?
If you would, please.
That really is a question that the school facility board is going to have to wrestle with. I know that there are advocates of members on the board that recognize that schools need to plan for growth, and this anomaly of a year can really set a number of schools and school districts back. So the school facility board hasn't come forward and said how they're actually going to count those brick and mortar students compared to what they used to call AOI or online school students, because in this case, our distance learning students will be counted as AOI students. And so we are still also waiting on how all those students will be counted at the state level and really getting more clarity on the funding on the budget side, but SFB remains, December is an important month for us. Let me just say that.
Anyone else have anything? Kelly, did you have anything else to add?
I don't. I just was going to ask if anyone else had any questions. Thank you.
Hearing none. Kathy, if you could I get a motion to approve item number 4, please?
My pleasure. I make a motion to approve the Arizona School Facilities Board's fiscal year 2020 to 2021 capital plan.
And if I could, a second.
Second.
All those in favor? Kathy?
Aye.
Yolanda?
Aye.
Suzanne?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
I am also an aye. I show that it approved unanimously. Item number 5, discussion and consideration to approve school number 7, school colors, school name, and also the mascot. Dr. Schiff.
All the fun things the board gets to do. Yes, we originally we put out a survey out to the community, as you know, and that really just surfaced a lot of ideas from the community. And with the school name, there were some favorites that came to the top. Those mostly were around variations of the Blue Horizon name. And from there, the board offered a suggestion of what we would call a legacy. So with the Blue Horizons would be a geographic marker of how we called the name out. And in this case, the board offered a legacy. And staff also presented, yet another name from the past, a first superintendent of the school district. So with all of this, because we had so many broad ideas, we'd already gone out to the community once. I pulled together the group that has been pretty consistent with us talking about school number 7, whether it was about some of the educational programming or whether it was regarding the architectural design. And they came together on a Google call, Google Meet this last week. I invited Jennifer Gray and Dave Bogart to also participate, just as school principals who also work with parents and children, and also know the history of the district, better than I do. So together, I asked them to consider, first of all, just their interest as a group around a geographic direction or a legacy direction with some of the options that had been submitted. And 100% across the committee, they were in favor of maintaining a geographic intent. They said the other schools in the district have been named in that way, and really, in reality, for the last 5 years or so, the school has been referred to not as school number 7. The future school has been referred to as Blue Horizon, and it really has that meaning with the community. So they offered to the board, I asked them to narrow the list down out of all the options, including the legacy names submitted. I asked them to provide me with 3 names. And the names they provided were Blue Vista Academy, Horizon Vista Academy, and their top choice was still remained Blue Horizon Academy, and that was very consistent with what the overall community had provided. Then we talked about the mascots. Hawks, jackrabbits, and bobcats were among the top choices coming from the community, and their top choice was the bobcats. So they like the ring of the alliteration with the Blue Horizon Bobcats, and that's what they were recommending bringing back to the board. For the colors, we had some conversation around how, with Blue Horizon, they felt like if that is the direction the board would go, the color blue of some sort, although we've got several other schools with blue colors. But they took some inspiration from some of the interior design and exterior design of the school, and we're looking at some things in the color families of some of blues with maybe orange or rust in color that would match some of the inspiration that came for the school and that would have some connection with the overall design. My recommendation for the board is to have some conversation and come to an approval on the school name and perhaps even the school mascot, but to hold off and not to have it be a board decision on school colors, to wait for the architectural design to settle in, and then as we work with a graphic designer to support us with building and design of a logo and kind of finalizing the color scheme, then we could take that influence that came from the community and just not have the colors be a decision tonight if that meets with your approval. So I leave that to you for conversation now with the additional information I provided.
Yeah, so on this one, kind of when this was first brought up, we did kind of go off and somewhat kind of take things into our own hands, kind of, if you will, of what we would like to see. And I thought it was a great idea, having a legacy, and then just thinking about it more and more. And then I was thinking to myself, well, we had these parents and these committees, and they offered, they took time out of their evenings, came down and, or was in the meetings and put some thought into it. And I just kept thinking to myself, that it's their community. It's their school. And I think that just kind of as a board, and just my thoughts of that, it should be the name, and it should be what the community up there, what they want. Not to say anything about the legacy naming of it. It was just kind of my thought of that we put the committees together and we asked for involvement, and just kind of my fear was that if we go off in a separate direction, that we'll lose maybe some people in that community of that maybe their thoughts would be, well, what, they didn't even listen to us. They went, they did their own thing. So why should we participate in future things? But just my thoughts, and I'd like to open it up to the rest of the board and just kind of tell me what you all think. Go ahead, Suzanne.
I sort of came to the same revelation. Like at first I thought the legacy idea was great. And I still think that when there's an opportunity, when there's a tie to the actual geographic area or the land that the school is being built on, if you can tie it somehow to there, I can see where, that's where I was headed more towards. I know that there's been a lot of influential educators, admins, superintendents within this district. So I think when we started to come to a legacy, if we didn't have that kind of tie to the actual land that the school was being built on, it would be hard to make a decision. So I was also, and then I also thought about that we've had a lot of parent feedback and community involvement, which is what we want to see. And that if this is the names that they were heading towards, then, we need to take into accountability. That's what we're really, there are constituents there who we're representing. I feel like they were giving us a clear direction and clear opinions of what they thought the school should be named as. So, really any three of them I'm good with. I would like us to maybe have a little bit of a discussion about if we're going to go with, from now on, calling our schools academies, or are we going to call them elementary schools? I know that Las Brisas is, we call that an academy, but yeah, I would like us to decide sort of, is this going to be the new norm, or are we still going to have, is it still going to be considered elementary schools? For me, I feel like sometimes when they start calling academies, it's a little bit elitist, and then we get into a little bit of the charter school territory. I feel like that's what they go for a lot, but that's just my opinion. I do like how the Blue Horizon Bobcats, I do like how that does sound. So, and I'm for waiting on colors, and I would even be okay waiting on a mascot if that's something, as it got closer to a planning principal or something like that, wanting to discuss with possibly the children coming into the district. Coming into that school.
Ms. Basinger, I know you were around for Las Brisas. I know the answer, but I'd like you to kind of tell Suzanne what the thinking was of why Las Brisas kind of went with academy rather than elementary.
My interpretation of academy was more of the public's preference to enroll their children in an academy. At the time, to enroll their children in an academy as opposed to just a public school. It was kind of, when we talked about marketing, I think it was more of just a marketing decision to move forward with that verbiage or that name as opposed to just Las Brisas Elementary School. And I think that was approved by the community and the board as well.
Yolanda, did you have any thoughts?
I'm with Suzanne. I don't like the word academy. When I heard about Las Brisas, I thought it was a charter school. I could not believe. I wonder how it was part of the district because I thought it was a charter school. Academy, to me, that's what it sounds like. And anybody I talk to always says an academy, oh, that's charter schools. And I'm like, no. Plus, I'm old school. Academy to me is back to the military academy when you send off your kids because you don't want them around. So I like Blue Horizon, but I really don't care for the academy word either.
Mr. Miller, I believe you live up in that area. What do you think?
Personally, academy or elementary, it doesn't matter to me. I believe the reality is that the teachers going to teach at these academies or the elementary schools are coming from the same teacher institutions. And so it's just a name. But in my opinion, academy is it sounds more elite. It sounds newer. And I think that's why a lot of parents are wanting that. And so it does sound like a charter school, but I think the reality is that there is a competitiveness with schools and to sound appealing. So there's a huge diversity of neighbors and people who are moving to Arizona or to Buckeye. And so in my opinion, I think academy is the way to go because it just sounds better to the people. You know, like I said, personally, it doesn't matter to me, but I think that people generally like the term academy in the newer neighborhoods and newer schools, but I could be wrong too.
Kathy, your thoughts?
Well, it's not going to be a surprise, obviously. I have the utmost respect for the parents. And I'm kind of sad that we couldn't talk about a hybrid of like a legacy / and geography. I think it's important to honor people. I'm not going to, make a big deal about it. I'm fine with academy or elementary. I particularly don't care for academy. That's just, I'm kind of I'm married a military man, and that's what I think of is that type of academy. And so it's more, that's my personal hang up with academy. But I'm not opposed to it for the school name. Blue Horizon, I believe we got Horizon. I think Dr. Sheff gave us several different other schools with that name. And I do believe that the mascot and the colors should be up to the actual stakeholders that are going there. And really the only thing we should come up with is the name. But.
Dr. Sheff, did you say that the stakeholders had that they had wanted to go with Bobcats?
They so it rated pretty highly with the just the broader group of who were surveyed, and then with this committee, when I brought them back together just to have them provide some additional guidance and conversation around it with more background than what people had just by surveying them, there's pretty good consensus there for Bobcat, so they like that. The colors, as you can imagine, were a harder thing to have conversation around, and frankly, I think that really does need to, get some support from graphic design. But I think I got some general guidance, some things that we might not have thought about that by hearing from the parents about how they go buy t-shirts and, what things get dirty and, just the things that from that parent perspective that were really helpful, that we can still use that information, but I don't know that we need to decide on particular hues of color here tonight.
Well, and the only thing I'd say is just remember Buckeye Union High School is the Hawks. And so you have BUHS Hawks, and then you would have BH Hawks. So may create some confusion.
And the committee recognized that as well. And I think that was part of the thinking to go with Bobcats.
Yeah, my thoughts on the name, as far as, and you guys actually kind of swayed me. I appreciate that because I was with Jamie that Academy, that's what charter schools have done to separate themselves from public education. Just exactly what Jamie said. It sounds good. It just sounds elite because nobody was used to that. But I appreciate Kathy, Suzanne, Yolanda, that we're an elementary school, and we should be proud of that. And that me personally, I'm in favor of Blue Horizons Elementary School. We have a charter school that we are going to be competing with against for those kids. And I think people appreciate when something says elementary school, because when you hear the name elementary school, you know that's public education. So my thoughts on the Bobcats is great, with hopefully one thing that I hope that the community members do not choose, which would be a red, white, and blue, to be mistaken with our southern neighbors in Tucson, because up here we are maroon and gold. Just going to go ahead and throw that out there. I hope they're all listening. But
I know a lot of farmers that went to U of A. You better be careful.
I know it. No, with that, I mean, if everyone's okay, I think that we should vote on the school name being Blue Horizon. Is it Blue Horizon or Blue Horizons?
No S at the end. I would share that the committee, they really did like the academy part, and I think Jamie summarized it well for their perspective on that. I think there's, for whatever reason, that was something they liked, and I think they liked actually blurring the line between charter and public school, almost taking something away from charter schools. You're not any more elite than us, just because you've got a name. And so we share that kind of name, and we have even more because we're a public school. We actually can offer quite a bit more. So I would just share that, just so you know, that was their perspective. But I think overall they would still be very pleased that the board went with the Blue Horizon name, and I don't think that will be a big stumbling block. But I would be remiss if I didn't share that with you.
So with that, I think we have a consensus here. Yolanda, if you could, for item number 5, if you could make a motion to approve school name Blue Horizon Elementary School, and then also the mascot being the Bobcats, I apologize.
Okay, I make a motion to approve school number 7 be named Blue Horizon Elementary and the mascot be the Bobcats.
And if I could have a second on that.
Second.
All those in favor? Kathy?
Nay.
You're gonna hit your sister up?
Suzanne?
Aye.
Yolanda?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Show that it approved 4-1 with 1 nay. Item number 6. To consider, discuss, and amend if desired and if deemed advisable to adopt a resolution approving the governing board's argument in support of the special maintenance and operation budget override election. So did any of you guys have anything else that you would like to add into it, or are you happy with the way that it's written? Hearing none? Go ahead, Jamie.
I was going to say I didn't have anything to say about it.
Well, with that, Jamie, can you make a motion to approve item number 6?
I want to make sure I motion this correctly. Is it just to adopt a resolution approving the governing board and so on? Is that going to work? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I believe that is just fine.
Okay. Motion to adopt resolution approving the governing board's argument in support of the special maintenance and operation budget override election.
And if I could have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Kathy?
Aye.
Yolanda?
Aye.
Suzanne?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
I'm also an aye. Show that it approved unanimously. Item number 7, discussion and consideration to approve new certified teacher job description. Mr. Nuttall, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. Good to be with you again. As part of our human resources audit and continuation of kind of an evaluation of all of our overall job description in alignment with our strategic plan, we've brought forth tonight for approval new teacher, certified teacher job description, which is reflective of all of the values that the committee members from the strategic planning committee worked for, which was inclusive of, as you know, several teachers, administrators, community members, et cetera. And what we wanted to try and do was bring forward a job description for a certified teacher that was really reflective of the direction that we are continuing to attempt to go, to bring the language up to speed for common language used that we use, in the strategic plan and elsewhere. And so created a strike-through version for your reference as well for the new certified teacher job description.
Did anyone have any questions?
I did. Mr. Nuttall, did the Teachers Advisory Board have any input? Did anybody see this, or is this just basic and just basic changes? I know that people are very worried about how much extra the COVID's going to require of them. So I just kind of wanted to get a little narrative on that.
Sure. Thank you for asking that. I think, what we're trying to do is bring, I hate to say modern language, I would just say more common language that we typically use into the fray. So, for example, more collaborative pieces, as is one of our values. And so what we tried to do is craft the verbs around that to match a little bit more eloquently what that looks like. In addition, just to bring in the additional responsibilities with new and updated standards and professional growth, which the Ed Services team, has done such a wonderful job of providing for our teachers, that they've been involved in all of those pieces from the perspective of what is actually expected. They did not physically view this as an advisory group, but the intent was to match all of the initiatives in strategic planning that we have done. I would never say a certified teacher job description is ordinary under any circumstances. It's quite intensive. We certainly value all of their input throughout all of the items that we've done so far.
That might have been bad word choice on my part, but thank you.
Oh, no. I just wanted to point out for all the teachers out there that there's nothing ordinary, only extraordinary in what they do.
And there's nothing ordinary about this year, so.
Anyone else? Hearing none. Suzanne, you make a motion to approve item number 7, please.
I make a motion to approve the new certified teacher job description.
And if I could have a second.
Second.
All those in favor? Kathy?
Aye.
Yolanda?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
Suzanne?
Aye.
And I am also an aye. Show that it approved unanimously. Item number 8. Discussion and consideration to approve certified teacher distance learning job description. Mr. Nuttall.
Thank you, Mr. Aguirre. We, as a human resources team, as well as the district administration group, we recognize, that as Ms. McNamara just mentioned, there's nothing that's been ordinary about, the past 6 months or so. We felt like it was important to include a certified teacher job description, distance learning job description from the perspective of making sure that we are incorporating all of the facets of online learning into the job description. So essentially, the job description that you just approved is mirrored, with the exception of a few additional duties and responsibilities and expectations, specifically regarding the use of technology. And we wanted to make sure that our teachers and all of our professionals are continuing to learn and grow and develop in how to best implement online instruction. We also wanted to pay particular focus on ensuring the safety of our students with regard to the use of online tools. And so we wanted to make sure that we incorporated those specific components utilizing technology into this particular job description, knowing that this is certainly some uncharted times with regard to distance learning. It also incorporates many of the things that we learned from back in the spring when we were just trying to hold on for dear life and provide instruction from a distance learning format. So we're bringing forward to you tonight distance learning certified teacher job description as well.
Any questions?
Yes. So I just want to clarify, this is the distance learning, not the online school job description, if I'm reading this correctly. So it's our distance learning. And we don't have any student ratios in any of our job descriptions, so I wouldn't expect that. And I know this year is different, but if we continue with the distance learning model as one of our options, do you foresee that when we all return to in-person, that those teachers will be doing the distance learning from a facility, or is this an opportunity that somebody could work from home and there would be some other requirements that they would need to meet for having like a designated area? I just didn't know kind of what your vision was that post-COVID.
Yes, that's a good question. The cabinet team met this morning and we're in some discussions about some professional expectations regarding at home. You know, we do realize that there are some teachers that may feel more comfortable providing distance learning from a classroom or at an office. You know, I know of having 3 children here at my own home. You know, that's tough to try and separate. You may notice I'm secluded now to bedroom number 5 with nothing. It's the best I could do. So as I'm trying to transition to this new learning, we are in the process of setting forth some professional expectations, specifically regarding a location, some dress code options, that type of thing, and just some professional responsibilities. So if Dr. Shuff, if you want to add anything to that, certainly glad to have you add on to that component.
So yes, having some expectations for what maintains professionalism. In the job description itself, I think there are some pieces about expectations for being available for staff meetings, collaboration, during the workday, being available. So that was kind of some attorney suggested language designated for distance learning. But the other parts of it, whether they are at home or at school, I think some of those decisions will be made somewhat flexibly as long as we maintain a quality standard without having to say everybody will do this from home or everybody will do this from their classroom. But so we did not feel that needed to be in a job description.
I was just curious under the other requirements if you were going to have this person work from home, because again, that also helps us with space. And just kind of thinking about your previous presentation, if they had to have, a designated work area. I know a lot of companies have a work from home agreement. And if we were specifically advertising for this and wanted that flexibility, I didn't know if you needed that or if they're going to use school resources or they need to purchase their own resources, because COVID's changed a lot of people's life. And now even my company's saying, well, you don't even need a desk at corporate anymore. You just need a place to drop, and now you'll get an allotment to set up your own, personal. So I'm just kind of forward-thinking. I'm not asking for it tonight. I just wanted to put that out there as we evolve into whatever our new norm is.
I think as time goes on that we're going to see some things that work and some things that don't work, some things that we like, some things that we don't like. A lot of us are working from home, but yeah, to your point, Kathy, that's kind of the model that a lot corporate America is going to, is you don't have desks anymore. You have a portable workstation. So, but any other questions? With that, Kathy, you make a motion to approve item number 8. You're muted.
Sorry, I know. That's why my mouse was not cooperating.
There you go.
Sorry.
Oh.
I make a motion to approve the certified teacher distant learning job description.
And if I could I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Kathy?
Aye.
Yolanda?
Aye.
Suzanne?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Show that it approved unanimously. Governing board comments on agenda topics or agenda topic additions. Does anything that you guys would like added, anything that's come up that you think you'd like to talk about or get more information on?
I don't know if Dr. Sheff had already planned to do this. I know things are changing rapidly, but a lot of what questions I'm getting is what is our standing operating procedure? Where is it going to be stored? Where can I see that? What are the cleaning processes can I expect my child when we return into person? Is there going to be a mask dress code? Because some of them are really darn cute, but some of them are kind of scary for little kids. I've seen some pretty scary ones myself. How are we going to communicate that? And the other thing I would say is, because we did opt for option, I believe it was 3, the start on the 5th, and that it didn't give a lot of extra time for the cleaning procedures and training teachers. How do we address that? I just think the public needs to hear. And so, so they know what to expect. And then any type of training, I know some other school districts are going to have parent training on how to do distant learning. And so I think it would be good for the public to hear what those plans are.
You got that one, Dr. Schuff, that we'll talk about. Anyone else? Hearing none. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry. No, that's okay. I was slow. I wouldn't mind having a discussion and maybe giving Lori some things to do. I've done a little bit of research myself on programs for K through 8 kids, but about sexual assault prevention. Or sexual abuse prevention, and not just prevention, but how to report it, how to identify it, and even domestic violence. I know that with a lot of kids staying at home, the numbers have risen, and I don't know. It's my belief that the school is doing a lot of the raising with kids. I realize parents are busy, and so the teachers have more time with kids than parents do. And so to get that through the classroom to kids, just to educate them. And I don't know if Liberty already has something district-wide, but just bringing up that conversation so that it's not such a taboo. So I don't know, that's a very wide and deep topic, but I wanted to start scratching that surface.
So maybe Dr. Schuff, you and Jamie might be able to get together on a phone call and kind of zero in. Mm-hmm. And then maybe you could maybe we can bring that as a administrative report in a board meeting. And that way we could all discuss it.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
All right.
Anyone else? Suzanne, Yolanda? Okay. So upcoming governing board meetings, July 27th, we have a regular board meeting. August 10th, regular board meeting. July 18th is the board retreat. We are obviously going to be doing that via remotely. I believe we're looking to start at 8 a.m., correct, Dr. Schuff? So Dr. Schuff will be sending out the kind of itinerary for everyone so you guys can kind of see the time frames that we're looking at. I believe, did we have it going till, was it 1 or 2 o'clock, Dr. Schuff?
We were aiming for 1 and keeping it open until 2.
Okay, so just kind of as a heads up to everyone, kind of the Saturday of what the schedule will look like. So obviously there's going to be some breaks in there for everyone, but also if there was anything else when she does send that out, if there was anything else that you guys see that you would like to add, there's some time in there for that. So if you could get that to Dr. Schuff. But with that, Yolanda, could you do us the honors in making a motion to adjourn the board meeting?
I make a motion to adjournment of a board meeting.
And if I could I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Kathy?
Aye.
Yolanda?
Aye.
Suzanne?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Show that it approved unanimously, and we adjourned at 8:11 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Drink lots of water.